Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by Dr. Luciana Passeri. She is an author, coach, entrepreneur, and I can't say the word. Somebody who works with nonprofit organizations. Thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm pleased to be here. Really grateful.
I am cracking up because before we started, I was having a hard time pronouncing things, and it may continue throughout this interview. So I appreciate the patience that everyone is giving to us. So
hmm
I'm actually going to talk about your memoir. She has an amazing memoir. It's called God's in a Box on My Dresser. It delves
hmm
into deeply personal and challenging experiences. Can you maybe share like what led you to writing this memoir and tell the readers and the listeners about their book?
Yeah. So, really, I wrote this book because I come from a legacy of addiction and suffering, legacies of people who grew believing they were the disempowering narratives that they were told they were. And so, as I grew up also in the Catholic tradition. And as much as I loved my religion and my faith, it was also very, very confusing
Right.
because of just how my life unraveled. So, the title of the book, God's in a Box on My Dresser, An Inquiry into the Human Capacity to Thrive, um, really, the box part is about how people, religions, traditions, um, continuously tried to define God. And my point, one of my points in the book, is that we can't define God. And when we do define God, and I get why people want to,
Mm,
because it can feel really safe and we're in control if we know what God thinks and wants and doesn't want and that. But limitations really prevent us from expanding our consciousness and growing. I have a kind of a quick example of
yes,
what I
please.
mean by
Yeah.
that, if I could. So, um, so I lucid dream. Okay, I don't know how many people are familiar with lucid dreaming, but lucid dreaming is the quick and dirty is when you become conscious in your dream,
Hmm.
even though you're sleeping. So you're like, yeah, I'm in my dream. Oh, cool. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, because I was a gymnast when I was younger, my lucid dreams often include not flying per se,
Hmm.
but I can do like backflips and reach chandeliers and all of that kind of thing. And it's super cool. I'm flying through, rooms or whatever. Okay, but here's the deal and how this connects with
Hmm.
the whole expandedness of consciousness is even though in my dream I can control like how many flips I do to the next chandelier or the
Right.
next beam, I can't control who's walking beneath me. I can't control the next chandelier. And I share this story because my dreams, then, our dreams, are examples of something outside of our consciousness trying to connect with us.
Right.
And so I know that to be true from my experiences. So connecting that to God in a box, it's very similar. When we have God in a box, we miss out on the opportunity to hear the whispers of divinity. And
Hmm.
people don't have to believe in God, to get this concept.
Of
It
course.
can be spirit, it can be whatever part of us that's intangible,
Hmm.
put a name to whatever you want for that. um, so it's this idea of how important it is in life to take divinity, to take God out of that box. We can still have religious beliefs if we want, but the box, if we don't kind of allow the box to soften or open, we remain constrained not just from a religious perspective, but from our own perspective and our own ability to fearlessly bring our own gifts into the world because we're naturally constrained by the limitations of a really powerful belief system.
Absolutely. That you bring up so many valuable points as you're talking, just growing up in the Catholic faith, listening to the whispers of divine.
Mhm,
Like they're all just such
mhm,
important themes and
mm,
how we kind of, even when we're working with spirit guides, what's one of the questions we always hear? Well, what's their name? Like that
Yeah.
just puts a limit on it. And I find that
Hmm.
fascinating because some things I know for myself, there's a guy that I have and they will not name themselves. It's like names are limiting. Like it's not going to happen.
Right.
So
That's right.
it's like throw that out with the bathwater. Like let it go.
Yeah, that's right. Quit trying, Rachel. Not gonna give
Quit
it to you.
it. Fine. Rude. No, just kidding. So let me ask you this: as we are laughing, this is going to be more of a heavy top question. So
Sure.
your story touches on themes about childhood abandonment, sexual abuse, and
Mhm,
addiction. How did you find the
mhm.
strength and resilience to not only heal but thrive after facing such adversity?
Well, so I was desperate to thrive. I had a relationship with Jesus since the time I was 4. That's when he came to me for my first time. So my abandonment was experienced as I was the youngest of technically 7 kids. The
Wow.
full story, of course, is in my book. But by the time I came along, my parents were wiped out, man. They had been through so much. But of course, as a kid, you don't know that. You just want to be loved and seen and heard. And even any excuse later in life, when, as a teen or whatever, it didn't matter what the excuse was. A kid just wants to be seen and heard.
Right.
Well, I later came to understand their suffering from a much like bigger picture. In any case, so when I was really little, Jesus came to me and we started to have just this beautiful relationship together, which was so lovely. And I credit my religion too with helping me to be able to nurture that. Well, little did I know, after that beautiful relationship had started when I was just 4 years old, by the time I was 6 and 7, I would experience sexual abuse that is inconscionable. I was abducted. Again, I won't go into it here because, trigger warning, there's
Of
people who have
course.
suffered a lot, and I
Of
want to make
course.
sure and be respectful of people's space. But from there, I went on to suffer from sexual abuse from a family member for many years. And so, as a result of the abuse, I developed, which I came to find out is not unusual, a raging eating disorder that
Mm,
almost killed me.
mm.
So I had this eating disorder that allowed me to cope with all of these disempowering narratives and traumatic experiences. And it was the only way at that time I knew I could like keep it together, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, but it's an exhausting way to live.
Yeah.
Absolutely exhausting. On the outside, I was successful. I had master's degrees, doctorate,
Yeah.
beautiful daughters, and yada da da. But I was so desperate to heal, so desperate. I made so many deals with God. I tried everything from therapy to, I mean, you name it.
Mhm, mhm.
And one day, actually, I was doing a philanthropy project in in Tanzania, and out of the blue, one of my project managers from the back seat said, "Hey, Luciana, have you ever tried ayahuasca?" And I was like, "What?" I
I
had
love this.
no idea what it was, 0 idea. Good little Catholic girl, no idea what that was. And my entire body, my entire energy system just went, and I just knew. I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, "I gotta get some of that." And he's like, it's not how it works, actually." Um, and he told me a little bit about it, but this is how powerful that
Yeah.
experience was. Um, from that point, it was only like 3 weeks. I started immediately Googling this.
Right.
I 3 weeks later was in Peru for my very first ayahuasca ceremonies, and that for me was the medicine that helped unlock the
Mm.
secrets to me thriving. I ultimately, in the book, is about 30 days actually that I spent in the jungle on this little island, just a few other people sleeping under a mosquito net, running water,
Yeah.
no blah 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 blah, nothing like that. And it was there where everything sort of solidified,
Mm.
and all my desperate desires to heal finally downloaded in this quiet space with the animals, the critters, the medicine, the shaman healers. Um, And so, I mean, long answer to how did you cope with it? The first quick part of the answer is I didn't. I
Mm,
coped with it with an addiction, like so many people who suffer do.
yeah.
And then how I coped with the addiction was stress, anxiety, and all of that. And so the jungle really gave me the space to do the work that I needed to do. You know, we have so much clutter, whether, you know, any part of the Western world, there's so much clutter in our space and
Yes.
distractions
Yes.
that it can make it really, maybe even impossible, I don't know, but very difficult to heal from such traumatic deep wounds that then, PS, the traumatic deep wounds create belief systems within us,
Right.
right? All these disempowering narratives that so many people just conclude, oh, it's just who I am. That's just who I am. It's like, no, 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 no. You get to decide that you have
Right. Right.
total power over that. Yeah.
I just love how vulnerable you are with your story. Like it's just amazing. And with plant medicine now, with using two things with ayahuasca. One, I did an interview a while ago and she said it calls you. And you just said that. Like
Yeah.
when you're ready for
Yeah.
it, it calls you. And I find that
Yeah.
I appreciate her in saying that and you saying that. I was like, "Oh my goodness, she's right."
Hmm.
I love that. So tell
Hmm.
me more about your journey with plant medicine, and is it something that you use with your clients? Because I know that you're also a life design coach. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So I am a life design coach, and I believe that we all have the power within us to thrive and to
Mhm.
clock our disempowering narratives. P.S. Thriving to me is when we align our thought, our talk, our emotions, and our behaviors with our highest purpose,
I love
right?
that. That's
Clock
perfect.
it all.
Clock
Yeah.
it all.
So clock it all. So that's thriving. And
Mm.
so what I do in my coaching practice is I support people in kind of excavating their patterns, their personal patterns of thought, talk, emotion, and behavior. And then, you know, I support them in aligning those so that they can access this part of themselves that maybe they didn't even know
Yeah.
existed. And I can give you one like really simple example of like
Yes.
clocking a thought. So when I came out of the jungle, I actually like it was 3 days leaving the jungle. I walked into a store in Cusco, Peru, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" My husband joined me. My husband and I, he's amazing. We've been together 36 years.
Aw.
Um, yeah. He's not a jungle guy though. So he came to meet me in Cusco for vacation. We walked into this store and I looked at him and I said, "This is it." Now, what did that mean? What that means is for over 20 years, I've been working with Indigenous artisans through my nonprofit, supporting them and bringing their crafts to market, and supporting them and living their best life, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So when I walked in, when I said, "This is it," it's like, oh, no, no. This is a company that is going to be world class and be built. And now, of course, many years in, we create wearable art, beautiful Indigenous shoes and bags, and yada, da, da. So anyway, so that company started like I didn't really start it. It started and I just showed
Yeah.
up. But here's the deal, I didn't speak Spanish. And so one summer, right as I was starting it, it was summer to do it. So I'm walking down the street in Cusco, and I kept having these massive fear waves. Like, you have no idea what I've never built a world company,
Right.
right? A
Right.
global company or anything. I don't know Spanish. I'm
Right.
walking down the street, and every day, all day, I would get these like fear stopping, you have no idea what you're doing. And I go,
Oh my
you know.
gosh.
And one day I'm walking down the street and that dang narrative came and it said,
Yeah.
"You have no idea what you're doing." But this time I stopped in my tracks and I did this sort of thing. And I went, "Yeah." I said, "You're right. You have no idea what you're doing, but you'll figure it out." And that's an example of like clocking thought, right? Of
Yes.
course I don't know. Of course I don't know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
I can figure it out. And all of the the anxiety and everything, the barriers that came along with that just one little thought and emotion evaporated and became vanquished.
Wow.
Yeah, but we have so many like that. When I was in the jungle, every night, well, the first couple nights, this massive rat. Okay, like I said, I was only sleeping under a mosquito net, right? This massive rat would run
Goodness.
between my head, right? Like brush my head, right? And most, well, a lot of us are afraid of huge rats running next to your head, right? And I would have these like, "Ah," like major, like
Yes.
panicky things. But same kind of thing. At one point, I just stopped and it was like, okay, you are day 3 of 30. You can be completely terrified or you can let it go and name him. So my friend and I named him Mr. Tickles. And then every night when he would run by my head, I would just go, Mr. Tickles, go to bed,
Mhm.
right? And so I share these two stories because I am so not alone in
Right.
having these disempowering narratives. But the
Yes.
cool thing is when we just change our minds so quickly, that changing of the mind and that experience is transferable to
Right.
every other area of our life. Because once we know we have that power and the effects of that power, we can do it with emotions, we can do it with behaviors,
Mhm.
with talk. It's just a really beautiful, like, "Oh, that's actually not that hard."
You're right. And that's what you label the clocking disempowering narratives. I
Right.
think that's awesome. And it's just, it's like
Yeah.
very quick.
Right. You
I
just change your mind about it. You just go, "Okay, I have a choice about this." And
that
it
is,
can continue to creep back in
of course.
temporarily. I mean, that's our minds, that's kind of their job. If we start to like challenge some of our old patterns of behavior,
Yeah.
our mind tries to keep us safe and be like, "Oh no, 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 you're not safe, you're not safe." And we have to continue to remind it like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, I am." And then eventually the switch is just on and we don't have to remind ourselves anymore. They just drop away,
And it becomes more
which I have
automatic.
stories about too, but yeah.
So
Story, story, story.
you kind of brought up a couple different things. So your work
Mhm.
covers a wide variety of topics, from
Yeah,
personal freedom to slow fashion entrepreneurship. So
yeah,
how did these seemingly diverse subjects connect in your mission to inspire and guide others?
yeah. Okay, so I can tell you because the pillars to my company,
Mm,
and the, slogans for my company actually came to me in the jungle before I knew the company would exist. Duh, right?
I love that.
So, the pillars of the company and the pillars of my life, right, are these. It's be beauty, live compassionately, love everyone, create peace, and be kind. And so those qualities, those pillars that had become my life even before the jungle, they
Mm,
didn't crystallize as perfectly, but those kind of pillars and guiding principles, I bring, of course, to the coaching because when we can be those things for ourselves, beauty, compassion, love, peaceful, and kind,
yeah.
it naturally transfers into the world. So my work then with Indigenous people had been supporting Indigenous people in also living their dreams and
Mm,
thriving in whatever way they desired, however that looked to them, right? And then with the company started, and the company is a slow fashion company, which means things are made by hand. We use hand woven textiles from the
mm,
Quechua people who live in the mountains of Peru. We have thrivable wages that we pay. We pay for our employees' meals, and I mean, it's just this
it's
really
amazing.
like beautiful. I don't know, it's not a bubble because it's not contained by anything,
Yeah.
but it's just these pillars. And so how my life has come together has been through these 5 lenses that I do everything. And we call our products in our company wearable art. So it's kind of like we as people, we are art, all
Mhm.
of us, in our own beauty and unique way of presenting in the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Let me
it
ask you
all comes.
this before I go on to the next question. If anyone's interested in purchasing the
Mhm,
sustainable art, what is the website to
mhm.
go to?
Yeah, it's my last name. So it's Passeri, Passeri .today.
Dot today. Okay, perfect. I got to make
Yeah.
sure to write that down. I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
back to
Thanks.
your memoir. So God's in a
Yeah.
box on my dresser, an inquiry into the human capacity to thrive. You kind
Hmm.
of touch on ancestral trauma. Can you how do
Yeah.
you approach how do you approach
Jesus.
healing generational wounds, and what advice do you have for others dealing with maybe a similar challenge?
Okay. So I'll share this through the lens of ayahuasca, but I will tell you, I
Yeah.
just want to give this caveat too. Ayahuasca is a very powerful medicine, and I do
Yes.
not recommend people engage in tourist ayahuasca. And it's hard to know what is and what isn't. It's dangerous. So
Yes. You need a
that's
guide.
the first thing. You absolutely do. That's the first thing. The second thing is that okay, so let me tell it through this. So ancestral trauma. So I personally believe everybody has, as part of our DNA structure, part of our ancestral structure, of course, because it's
Yeah.
DNA, right? That's passed down. Well, as I shared at the beginning, we have in our family tradition a tremendous amount of addiction, and most
Mm.
of that through grandparents came through alcoholism. You know, hundreds of years ago, I don't know how long, there wasn't meth yet in the way we know it now. So anyway, that was the drug of choice. I'm not making light of it, but that
No, of
was
course.
of choice. So in one of my ceremonies, actually, my grandfather came in to the ceremony, and he's been dead for a very long time. And he came in such a beautiful, beautiful way. And he came in and he apologized for bringing addiction into the family. And I saw my dad in the back, who was also an alcoholic, and I saw him very emotional
Mm.
and not quite sure. And my dad has also been dead for quite some
Mhm.
time, not quite sure how to manage all of this. And so, as I am observing, what I'm experiencing is, whether we want to call it the energy, the DNA, whatever, of this ancestral trauma that was held in this space on this little island, right? And it
Mhm.
was in that space. So addiction and all of this is just energy. And when we have the power to look at it without judgment, turn off the analyzer button, right?
Right.
Turn off the judgment button. And when we are just able to look at it without having to figure it out, it can bring this healing salve to our energetic space that is indescribable. It's absolutely indescribable. So how do you do that with, out ayahuasca? Well, we don't need ayahuasca to do it.
Right.
Um, what we need is to untether God, our belief systems, from any kind of box and allow ourselves to sit with the energy of ancestral generational suffering. Might not be trauma as therapeutically defined,
Mhm.
but deep, deep suffering. When I started to excavate my parents' life, for example, and learn about my grandparents a little more, the stories that I saw and that I heard and that I evidenced through like ancestry.com or whatever, tremendous. And so it's this lightening of that oppressive feeling of ooh, of heaviness that
Yeah.
we carry, right? I often say to my clients or my students, you know, we suffer tremendously as humans in many, many different ways, and suffering is real,
Right.
but there's always a story behind the suffering. And I believe that all suffering is relational. And thus, I also believe that because all suffering is relational, all healing is relational. Now, I don't have to be in a relationship with somebody has abused me. That's not what I mean.
Right.
But I mean, I have to heal the story about that relationship so that I can then um, have space to look at my thoughts, talk, emotions, and behavior that keep me stuck in that space. Abusers have so much power.
Mm,
They have so much power, dead for, 20 years, however long, and they still can have power over people. But what I want people to know, maybe more than anything, is that when we step into our power, we write the stories.
mm,
When we have histories like I do that were filled with trauma and neglect and abuse, we have the right, even maybe the responsibility to sit with those stories in a safe way, sometimes with a therapist, right? Or very often with a therapist, but sit in a safe way with those stories without judgment about ourselves and just allow ourselves to breathe and to heal. Ancestral trauma is no joke. It is no joke. And so the idea of being open and curious to allowing the stories of our ancestors to be sort of, it's kind of like cheesecloth, be filtered through us without us actually taking it on.
yeah.
But just allow it, yeah, to filter through us. I have a really quick story. I
Yes.
had an experience where I was in this really deep meditative space, and I kept seeing, like huge fishing nets that have like squares in them, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I saw fishing nets being carried by people going by, but in every little square there was a skull. Every little square, and I'm like, oh, that's curious. And it wasn't scary, but it was so weird. I'm like, okay, oh, there comes some more. And some were babies, some were big, some were old, some were, whatever. And as I then reflected on that experience, what I learned was that every single one of those skulls represented a disempowering narrative that I had to let die. And I think we all do. I think we all just need to let certain things die. Just let them go to their natural death
Yes.
without judgment. We don't need them anymore. And their attachment to us is not helpful to
Mm.
us. It thwarts us.
That is
Yeah.
so powerful what you just said. Just let it die. Let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it
Let
die.
it go.
It's okay.
Hmm.
And think about
Hmm.
how much more of an empowering person you would be if you just took off the weight, you know?
Right.
Just take it off.
And for what? And for what are we carrying it? To
Right.
what end? Like,
Especially like you said 20 years ago. You're right about people that holding power over you years and years
what?
and years.
Mhm.
It's so heavy.
It's so true. I know. I know.
I'm like, I gotta go.
And yet it's not that hard.
It's not,
It
healing
is.
doesn't have to be hard, but you have to be willing to look at it and be
You do.
willing to actually, like you said, people have suffered. You've gone through
Right.
trauma, but you have to be
Right.
willing to take a lens to it. You know,
That's right.
you're
That's right.
100% correct. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Before I
And
ask the last question about being a life design
mhm.
coach, if anyone is
Yeah.
interested in purchasing your memoir, God's in a Box on My Dresser, an inquiry into the human capacity to thrive, what is the best place for them to go to?
Well, Amazon.
I will just say that I have purchased it off of Amazon, and you can get
Oh,
it the
thank
Kindle
you.
version in hardback or paperback,
Yep.
Amazon, and then you have two different websites. Can you tell us those one more time, please?
Yeah. Passeri.today is the company website. And
Okay,
then lucianapasseri.com is my other site, which I need to update. But yeah.
that's okay. So let me ask
Yeah.
you this. So
Like we
for
do.
we all need to update. Oh my goodness, every
Right.
day it's like you can't
Yeah.
just
But that's,
you can't just be an
yeah.
entrepreneur. Like it's just there's so many layers, especially when we have small businesses. So
Yeah.
for those that are maybe considering seeking out a life design coach like yourself, what are the
Mhm.
key areas of life that you focus on, and how can individuals determine if working with a life design coach is the right step for them?
Great question. So I never direct people to where they have to start their work. In our first sessions, it's a very much story opportunity for stories. There's often couple ways this presents. One, a lot of crying. which is so normal. It's beautiful.
I'd love to
It's
cry. I'm
so
not gonna
normal.
lie. I'd love
I
to
know, right?
cry. Cry all
And
the
even when
time.
right? And when I say healing's easy, I don't mean like, ha ha ha, oh, I'm healed. I mean like I'm bawling my eyes out and going, what the heck, you know? And I'm doing the work.
Right.
So, right? So it's this piece, so that's one way it presents. Another way it sometimes presents is with a lot of defensiveness, a lot of I got this, my life is actually good. I just need to, talk about a few of these things. So those are the two different ways
Right.
it usually presents in those, first couple of sessions. But those are the sessions that help us go deeper and say, okay, well, let's look at this pattern. What's
Mm,
beneath that pattern? And then what we do over typically it's 12 weeks,
nice.
but there's other options for people. And the 12 weeks gives us the space to really, I'll use the word again, excavate the thought, talk, emotions, and behaviors that are out of alignment.
Mm,
We have these life visions for ourselves, or some people don't. And, we need to talk about what's the life vision for yourself. Where's your soul
yeah.
calling you to? Um, so the idea is to align all of these things so that our stories from the past, they come into alignment. Our story about how we want to create our future come into alignment. And of course, when we bring into alignment, we are then living in our authenticity and in our truth. So it's a really powerful um, way to, that's why I call it life design coaching. It's a really powerful modality for people because it's looking at all the patterns, that keep us stuck. Um, so, yeah.
You don't necessarily have to be a spiritual person to have a life design coach. It could just be that, I'm feeling a little blocked. I'm feeling a little stuck and I just, I need to look at something a little bit
Mhm.
deeper.
Oh, 100%. In fact, about maybe 40% of my clients are either atheist or agnostic. I
I love
mean,
that.
that's
Doesn't matter.
absolutely
Yeah.
it's not relevant. What's most relevant, and what happens with most people is, a lot of people do have traumas and things that they can think of, but just as many people who come to me are like, I just feel like there's something more for me. I'm 30, 40, 50,
Love
and I've
that.
had these visions and but for some reason I'm not there. And
Yeah.
I help them get to the there. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I love that. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
I'm not sorry. That's beautiful. I love that. Again, I'm not sorry. I want to thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight
Aw,
series. You are amazing. Thank you again.
aw. And thank you, Rachel. I appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit of the story. Thank you.
Of
My story.
course.